So before we begin, we want to hear from the panel so that you all have an idea of who's here and why they're here. So we're going to start to the far left with Bob Burrow, who's the president of GCC, and have each person just talk briefly about who they are and why they're here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you all for coming out and spending some time with us, and look forward to hearing things you have to say and comments and hearing your stories. That helps inform the work of the task force. So when I first got a call at Greenfield Community College, John Merrigan, Sheriff Chris Donnellan, and District Attorney David Sullivan called and said there's a problem in the community and they want to organize a response to it. Can we meet at the college? Of course you can. And about 10-15 folks showed up for that first meeting. The second meeting, we had about 50 people, and I think by the time there was sort of a larger, more published announcement of the meeting, there was something like 400 people showed up. So I knew clearly that they had not only identified the problem, but really built a response to it that was going to be supported by the community. Our role in working with the task force is to provide space to help convene conversations. So we have had, many a meeting or speakers come to the college. But beyond that, the task force helped us to build and invested in a curriculum that we have a new certificate program that helps people learn the skills and gain the knowledge so that they can enter the workforce in that area. That is, for those folks who are interested in working in the recovery field, we have a curriculum for that. And then the task force helped make that happen. And then more recently, there's been a strong effort to build a good bridge from the recovery community into the college, understanding that education is a strong and vibrant part of, and challenging part of the recovery road, and we understand the courage it takes to make that decision. And so we have folks at the college who work with students as they come in and working with the courts, and so we could talk about that as the evening unfolds. So our role really is in support of what the task force does to really take on clearly something that's national, not just something that's Massachusetts. So that's our piece of it, and look forward to talking with you more.
Hi, I'm David Sullivan, and I'm the Northwestern District Attorney. So I'm the DA for Franklin County, Hampshire County, and then the town of Athol. And starting about 5 years ago, because we have a state police unit that's attached and we investigate unattended deaths, we started to notice the number of individuals that had died of overdoses. And clearly at the time, the state was not really aware of this situation. They published reports maybe 2-3 years down the road, but in real time, nobody knew what was going on. In other words, they didn't accumulate the ambulance data, the response data, they didn't accumulate the death data. So I think this epidemic was brewing for a good 2 years before finally I woke up, and many people woke up to the fact that this was a true epidemic that was hitting all parts of western Massachusetts and not sparing any community, including Shelburne Falls and Buckland and the rest. So it was really John Merrigan, Chris Donnellan, and a number of other people that really started to move the ball forward. And I think what's really been key behind this task force has been you, the community, and people that have pitched in, that have been medical providers, that have been different parts of the community, treatment community, recovery community, that really makes it happen. And I think that as we move forward, it's just an ever-evolving thing to make people comfortable that have addictions to heroin, opioids, alcohol, to be able to come forward and get the help that they need. So I think one of my strongest goals is treatment and recovery. We've been able to change the philosophy of the district attorney's office that really looks at treatment first. So we have a program that a low-level drug user has every opportunity to get treatment before being prosecuted and possibly going to jail, and we want to make sure that happens. So I have to say that the real development over the last 2 years has been able to get some treatment facilities, one located in Greenfield that many people in the community worked hard on, particularly our senators, Senator Rosenberg and Representative Kulik and Representative Mark, to be able to really push forward with that with DPH funding. And additional resources. There's now a treatment facility out in Covington. There's one that's in its early stages in Petersham, because that's the biggest complaint. I mean, it's great for our prosecutors to recommend treatment, but if there's no treatment, then it's really a false promise. So, and we want people to get into treatment right away. In fact, when they're in the emergency room, I want them to get treatment then. And we're still working on that in our county here to really make sure that people don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks to get into a detox in a residential. So I really look forward to really engaging the community, because everybody's affected in some way. They may know, it may be a loved one, it may be a friend of the family, but I think the more that we work together and we let people know, don't be ashamed of getting the help that you need, I think the more progress we're going to make. Because in this day and age, with fentanyl being added to our heroin supply, and fentanyl is a very powerful synthetic opioid, about 50 times stronger than heroin, we just don't have the time, the luxury to wait to get people into treatment and recovery. We really need to have a sense of urgency, and I know that everybody here and a lot of the health professionals really have that sense of urgency, that we really can't wait. It used to be years ago that heroin was very low potency. It was maybe 5–10%. Now it's much stronger, both potency but also with the addition of fentanyl. So I look forward to really hearing from you folks, and any ideas that you have, we'd really like to welcome.
Good evening. My name is Betty Babinski, and I'm from the Franklin Probate and Family Court Probation Department. So, if anybody knows John Merrigan, when he invites you to do something, it's wise to do it. We've all learned. So I was able to come on early into the task force, and it has just been a pretty amazing experience and an incredible learning experience. And so much of that. I think our court is a really neat community as well, and we all operate well together and work well together. So it's really been a joint effort. We're a civil court, we're not a criminal court, but we're seeing people coming in with fractured families and families that are broken up and split apart a lot due to substance use disorder issues. So we really were seeing a spike in grandmothers in particular coming in and filing for guardianship of their grandchildren because their 20-ish-year-old daughter was involved in heroin. And it was just sort of smacking us right in the face that this is becoming a huge problem. And then it has morphed into more than just the guardianship as we watch time go on. We have developed a family drug court, and I believe that we are the first in the nation to have a family drug court. There's some other family drug courts that are juvenile court based, and that's different, and I won't get into all of that. But what we're doing is really looking at the whole family unit, and focusing on what each party needs. So whether it's the individual with a substance use disorder, the family members that are caregivers, and maybe it was someone that hadn't been a caregiver for the child or children before, what kind of supports do they need? And also, what's happened with these kids? Have they been subject to some sort of trauma that's happened? Where they've been living in the household and the situations they've been exposed to. So really trying to do a holistic approach so that it's not just centered on the one person that has the issue with substance use, but understanding that it is much more pervasive than that, and it really permeates through the family. So that's been our goal. We've been up and running for almost a year. We've had, I think, some success stories. We've had some stories that ended earlier than they should have because it's a voluntary program. So we've learned tons as far as the medical model, what it does to the brain, how people can be receptive or not receptive, and how they're making decisions or not making decisions wisely. So it's been, I'd say the last 3 years or so, really has been an incredible learning experience for a lot of us, and has changed a lot of people's points of view, what the whole story is behind someone who has an addiction issue.
So thank you, everybody. My name is John Merrigan, and I am the Register of the Probate and Family Court in Franklin County. And as has been mentioned, 5 or 6 years ago, the court system in Franklin County really didn't have this underlying problem that surfaced rather suddenly. I think we were aware of the availability of Percocets and pills, and next thing you know, it turned into kind of this heroin crisis, this epidemic that, as the DA said, was probably out there, but we didn't have a good way of tracking it. So the task force was created in response to that, as Betty said, in my court, seeing the grandparents in their 60s coming in for custody of children that are, the grandchildren 2 years old, 5 years old. But the task force has been able to unite the entire court system. Many people in this area are familiar with Judge Bill Masnick from the district court, and Clerk Ken Chafee from up in this area as well. Have been great partners, because the criminal court certainly has a key role in this as well, but it's all courts. It's been juvenile court. It's been, when you boil it down, in many cases, the housing court gets involved because of issues around evictions and trafficking or drug dealing within the properties, and landlords are forced into the housing court. So we've been able to unite all the courts, and this work has started here, but when we started, we hired Marisa Hebel, who some may have had some contact with previously, but and she helped us really build this kind of public health model from the ground up. And what we did through that process was identify the gaps. And what we found is we didn't even have outpatient programs in this region through a process of working with the service community, social service community, but working with Bay State and others. We were able to build that. We were fortunate that the detox facility was approved in his final few months. Deval Patrick, on his way out, made a commitment to fund the detox that now opened on Federal Street, Greenfield, CSO, and BHN, and a number of other providers have come in now with outpatient programs. And that's Betty said, we have learned a lot. Some of the underlying issues, and we've done training for staff around trauma and what people experience when they're younger and how that can affect them, obviously, when they're older. And many people that are incarcerated have gone through serious issues, serious bouts of trauma in their lifetime. And our court experiences that as well. So we continue to learn. We're hopeful to kind of drill down and get further down into the system with the task force and be able to get into the schools. And we had a forum, our first forum last week in Deerfield, where the health teacher talked about on her own, and we've talked about it as a task force of trying to bring in not scared straight, not dare, but programs that can help younger people with positive thinking, with decision making, mindfulness programs. And she even talked about a yoga program that she's implemented and how well it's been received at Frontier. So we're interested in exploring those ideas, those issues. As Bob talked about, President Pure talked about, we're collaborating. We have created really kind of a feeder program for people that are struggling it could be recovery community, but the most success that we've seen, we put a little of our task force funding into the hands of GCC about 5 or 6 months ago, and enrolled, I think, 7 or 8 students into the college community through those funds, and it dried up quickly. So there's almost a waiting list, in the fact that the probation leaders in the county, in district court, and Betty for the family court and the Superior Court were on this advisory committee with GCC. We didn't even launch. They just knew that there were candidates out there that had the potential. So we now have a waiting list. We've asked for additional funding in this budget, and the one that's being actually debated today and tomorrow in the Senate. So we do have resources. I think we've shared those resources with different programs, and I think some up here have felt that positive impact. So if you have ideas for us, we're open. We want to continue to try and solve this problem further down. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Good evening. I'm Cindy Russo, the President and Chief Administrative Officer for Bay State Franklin Medical Center and the Northern Region of Bay State Health. And, having come here from Connecticut and previously working within the Hartford healthcare system just under a year ago, I was just so impressed learning about the work of this task force, not just the awareness in this community, but also the initiatives that were taking place. Things that I had not heard were happening while I was, as I said, at Hartford. So I felt so privileged to be asked to serve on the task force. As John said, I'm learning every day. I think in terms of the work that the staff do at the hospital, I'm impressed every day in terms of their thinking, their caregiving that they provide. But still, we have a huge responsibility as the largest healthcare provider in the area, not just as folks enter our emergency department and we provide care and treatment there, not just as folks come into our inpatient care areas, but certainly across the continuum. To think about how do we as a medical community contribute to this crisis in ways. How do we make sure that when folks leave our care, that they are set up with the continuing care and treatment that they need? How do we work with community agencies to make sure that the resources that individuals require to successfully manage through this process and their journey, it all ties together. So it's not just about us as that medical community, but how do we sort of connect along that path. So again, I feel very privileged to be able to participate in this way. As John said, just participating last week at the session in Deerfield, I learned several things that I've actually been able to take back already into our health system and start some initiatives, whether it be, as I said before, how do we contribute as a medical community? How can we better assess people as they come across our threshold to identify whether or not there's that potential? And also programming that we can put in place at the hospital, whether it be for special populations of individuals who are dealing with this issue, or other initiatives that we may be able to put into place. So again, I look forward to still learning more from all of you, hearing your stories, hearing your thoughts, and then being able to take them and put them into action.
Hi, I'm Sandy Sayers, and I'm the Executive Director of the United Way of Franklin County. And I became part of the task force for 2 reasons. One is professional. I work for an organization that raises money for local groups that are working on community issues. And when I saw this as being a big community issue, I wanted to see how the United Way could help in perhaps raising some money specifically for this issue and steer some resources to the task force. The other reason is personal. I have a 29-year-old son who was addicted to heroin when he was 20 years old, and he is doing great now, and so I like to share that information. You know, it was a shock, clearly, there's addiction in my family, but, you know, we had the resources to be able to send him to a fine facility outside of Boston for 3 months. And since then, he's been on Suboxone, and it is decreasing each year. He's still on it a little bit, but now he works full-time, has a girlfriend, and just bought a house, and, you know, so I like to share that story and let other parents know if they're dealing with this issue, that there's hope, and that if I can help someone, I'd be happy to talk with them. So that's all from me tonight. Thanks for being here.
Phoebe Walker from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. We're sort of a membership organization of all the different towns in Franklin County. And as I said earlier, I live here in town. I don't think I probably need to take up much more time, but want to just say that one of the things I think has been most interesting for me of the last few years is when I first got hired, my first job basically was working in tobacco control, back when people used to think that if you just showed a creepy picture of a person with oral cancer, then a person wouldn't smoke. And I think seeing the way that we've all learned as a community together what, you know, what a brain disease actually looks like, and how to be compassionate as a community the way that you are with a diabetic or somebody else, that's been really moving to see the whole kind of human service and public health world shift from this position of if you just knew better you wouldn't, to understanding more what it's like to have a chronic relapsing, you know, disorder. So it's been very powerful for me, and I'm glad to be part of it and really see my role as trying to work with our towns and our local governments to see what our piece can be, whether that's police carrying Narcan or, you know, the prevention programs in schools, all that kind of stuff. So thank you all for being here, and also all of those of you who came in late. We have lots of pizza and cookies and things to drink, and we don't want to take them home, so please stand right up and walk over and get it. It's not that formal situation.
Hey, Deb, can I add one more thing? And I think it's been said along the way, but I really want to emphasize that of all the good things that this task force has accomplished, none more so and nothing as important as sort of the way in which they've reshaped the way we look at addiction in this community. To hear leaders in the community talk about their family, to understand that the stigma of addiction has been reframed to see it as a disease, and to understand that the people who are touched by this addiction are our kids, our neighbors, our families. I just think that what they've been able to accomplish has just been huge in that area. It allows for a conversation like this one here tonight.
So I'm Jonathan Diamond. I'm a therapist in Shelburne Falls, Northampton. I have a specialty in addictions and I guess the clinical needs of adolescents. I'm here tonight as a co-founder of the Recovery Theater, which is a offshoot of the Hilltown Youth Theater Summer Workshop. It's the workshop has been around for 7 summers. And the Recovery Theater, the recovery intensives, we've been running these pre-workshop intensives, and young adults that participate in the recovery intensive also have the option of staying through for the workshop. And thanks to the Opioid Task Force, 10 kids were scholarshiped into that program last year. So they got to participate in the spectacle and not just the treatment or the therapy part of the program. I think it's all therapeutic, to be honest. I'd even make an argument that the participation in that spectacle and the rest of the program, as you get as much mileage out of that as you do for the 2 weeks you spend with Cassie and I and Laura. We have a lot of people here. I'm just going to give a shout out to a few people before I show a brief video. But Arlie Hart is our trapeze artist and director. Laura Iveson runs our art program and set design. Cassie Cudley is one of our student faculty. She's going to share a little bit. And then some of our student participants are here, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. So I'm going to show it's a 7-minute video about the programs. Then I'm going to just bring up the young adults and let them share. Some of them are going to go off the cusp, and some of them have just prepared some things that they've written. Natalie, I brought the thing that you wrote, so if you wanted to read it from a parent's perspective, you got it. Alex, do you have yours on your phone? You don't? Okay, so we'll try to punch that up on my laptop if we can. And we also have when we're doing recovery theater, when we're doing the intensives, and it's folks that are young adults that are working on issues of anxiety and depression and addiction, the rule is you don't have to share, like we do writing exercises, so when it's time to share, you can pass, but you also have the option of asking somebody else to read for you, which Allie is going to do. Allie, you're going to have, are you going to read, or are you going to have?
I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay, fine. I was going to say, because the only person who, and then in the theater part, we don't give people that option. It's show business. So like, you're on. Except for Officer Jenkins in the back. Tucker was one of the few people who actually didn't have to do that, to perform that time when we now have a rule that when you have a fever, you never go to the nurse, right? He was in one of our productions early on, and he had 104, and he went to the nurse, and I was like, what were you thinking? So another Roman McCutcheon's older brother, Connor, learned your part in 45 minutes. He's he's actually on track for med school in Johns Hopkins, so he was the right guy for the job. But so every now and then there's an exception. So what we're going to do before I play the video is actually I'm just going to get people up on their feet, because this is what we do in the recovery theater. So first we're just going to put our hands on our hips, and you guys that know it can call it out, and everybody else can just use English. Bella Sky, move over a little bit, give Sam a little room. Watch the person in front. And you can just repeat after me or just say it in English. Hana!
Hana!
Do! Set! Net! Toss it! Yos it! Ilgo! You do! Aho! Yo! Shake it out a little bit. Then one of the presidents, I think President Piro said something about yoga, so we'll just do a couple of breaths. Shake it out again. And I think that'll do for now. But anyway.
Hilltown Youth Theater is a year-round after-school and summer performing arts program. Its mission is to build supportive, creative communities and to put on great shows.
My name is Emma Lonergan. I've been a member of the Heath drama community since I was in kindergarten and was a founding member of the Hilltown Youth Summer Theater Workshop.
I started working at the summer workshop 2 years ago. It was a total new perspective on drama for me. Really put my ideas into the play. Out of the 12 years I've been doing drama, working with the younger kids was definitely my favorite part, because it's just incredible to see them evolve throughout the summer, and I think that was far more important to me than actually being in the production. It was like being involved in their lives and their growth as human beings into much stronger individuals, and just being able to help mentor this group of kids that I know is someday going to be someone in my position, becoming the mentor of this new generation of actors.
The Recovery Theater is an initiative of the Hilltown Youth Theater, established in response to a statewide opiate epidemic undermining our youth and communities. One of the other things that I'm really proud of with the Recovery Theater and proud to be a part of is the opportunity that it gives young people to claim ownership of the title artist after having just gone through something in their lives that they feel is labeling them in a really negative way. And so taking ownership of a positive label and a positive title like artist or actor or performer, it's just an incredibly refreshing thing to see.
I joined the Recovery Theater because personally I struggle with loneliness and isolation, and just the group atmosphere of the camp was very helpful to me, because it was like its own little community, and it just felt so freeing to be able to talk about the struggles that I go through and hear that other people go through the same kind of thing.
Get it out there. Get our stories out there so that it wouldn't feel so bad on us, and we could kind of share it in a group environment and have the weight be on all of us instead of just the individual.
The Heath Drama Program, it's an exceptional program. I mean, it's something you might see at the high school level. It's been involving of all the students in the school, parents and community members, the artists in town. Almost everybody's involved in putting on the show, and the kids love it, and many of them have gone on to the local high school and other schools, and they're still involved in the performing arts as a result.
Both my children went to Heath School when they were in elementary school, and I have a daughter with special needs who has been in the theater program and has It really improved the quality of her life. She's thrived in the environment here.
I think my fondest memory of my time doing theater at Heath was when we had the entire school participate in the show. It was really this giant spectacle. We were making set pieces in the art room. We had teachers coming into classes and we were like reading about the show, different aspects. When we did 1776, we took a giant field trip to Boston. So we took the entire school to Boston. We walked past one of the historical sites that was important for our show, and just right there in the middle of the road we all started doing theater training, which is kind of unique for our program. It's unique to devised physical theater specifically, and I just remember people walking and stopping and looking at us wondering what we were doing, and it was just a really fun experience to train right in the places where our shows took place.
I think that I'm more prepared for college because of the experiences I've had in the Hilltown Youth Theater Summer Program, because it's taught me all of these life lessons about respecting yourself and being passionate about what you do. And I think that the lessons I've learned will definitely impact me and will carry me through a lot of hard choices in the future.
The work with young people in the hill towns here is more than what it seems on the surface level. What they're doing is treating the youngest people in this underserved rural community as emerging artists, and treating them as future actors, activists, and activators, as future citizens and future leaders. And this work has a direct, palpable impact on all facets of this community. It's economic, it's social, and I'd even say it's spiritual. And I can say I've seen this firsthand over the years. The core sense of what's possible in this Hilltown community has changed at a fundamental level, and hopefully will continue to change.
Hello everyone! We, the student faculty and co-directors, would like to thank you all for coming.
Hello, my name is Eli. I was our technical director and a trapeze assistant. Good evening everyone, my name is Chris and I was the production manager.
I'm Emma. I was the Ariel. Yep, instructor and makeup artist. My name is Sequoia, and I was a scriptwriter and also a makeup designer.
I'm Zach. I was the music director.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a makeup artist, musician, set design assistant.
Two lovely gentlemen right here are the Hart brothers, and they were catching and flying people today in the performance.
My name is Cassie. I'm a trapeze assistant and makeup artist. I worked as a counselor with Erin down at the end during the 5-day recovery intensive before the workshop started. It aided in the recovery process of teens overcoming addiction, self-harm, and mental illness. This year, all the participants opted to stay through for the 3-week workshop. The recovery intensive is supported by 2 private donors as well as the Opioid Task Force of the Franklin County. We rely on our grant funders and the kindness of strangers to keep this all afloat. Donations can be made at the table. Please make checks payable to the Mary Lyon Foundation. And be sure to like Hilltown Youth Theater on Facebook. Good night!
Thank you!
So just some random thoughts. I do think it's a whole, Alyssa, my co-founder, talks about it as being a holistic model. We use a strength-based approach. 2 summers ago was our first summer. We had 4 kids that came directly out of treatment into our program. There may be a time when we're just running a recovery intensive for kids who are working on sobriety, but right now, as you know, when you're trying to build grassroots programs and initiatives, you don't want it, you want a big tent. You want to get, and also the thing is with young adults that substance abuse doesn't come in neat little categories and boxes. It comes with trauma and addiction. you're going to hear from one of our ensemble members tonight, who's going to talk a little bit about gender dysphoria and depression, and a young adult who's in the LGBTQ community has 190% greater chance of having a serious addiction or substance abuse issues. Those are serious percentage. Those are Stephen Curry kind of numbers. It's ridiculous. So I feel like one of the things we're really committed to is creating safe places for everybody to be seen and be heard, and to be not just accepted, but embraced and celebrated. And when you create spaces like that for the kids, for young adults in those communities, and those marginalized communities, you are investing. Those are prevention dollars. Those are dollars that are preventing addiction later on and problems later on. And I could give the same spiel for anxiety and trauma and other things. But the fact is, last summer we had one person who came out of treatment, it being N equals 2. So I'm not holding to those numbers at all. We're trying to build a program. What we've talked about is in the future we could have a week that was just devoted to sobriety alone. What Alyssa and I are doing in the meantime is we're doing breakout groups. So when we do an exercise, sometimes we just take the kids who have recovery, heroin-specific issues or addiction-specific issues, and we'll have a breakout group with them. But in the meantime, I feel like we've actually gained more mileage from destigmatizing the issue and having everybody be under that tent together, and nobody having something that seems scarier than the next person. So it's a holistic model. People being able to participate in the spectacle itself is critical. Jumping around a little bit, the Heath School. I started there 13 years ago. That's a different story. Bruce Lessel, the owner of Zor Outdoor, his daughter wanted to be in a play. So here I am looking for, hustling on the street, looking for 20 grand for a workshop and devoting half of my practice to this. But so Hannah had a great run in drama club. My wife was actually the performer, and she said, Jonathan, I'll do it. I don't have the time. And then over the course of those 13 years, I found my kids aged out. I still wanted to do it, and I wanted to keep I wanted to start bridging my two worlds. I was feeling a little schizophrenic, and I realized the kids in my practice needed what we were doing in the winters up in Heath and in the summers down in Charlemont. But the last 2 years, given declining enrollment, I'm just saying this because it's in the papers. It'd be more accurate, wouldn't you agree, kids to say, or young adults to say, it's more like the Hilltown Drama Club at this point. We have kids from BSE, from Greenfield. Luna was in the show this year, and Bella Sky, and their unschoolers from Wendell. We had people from Charlemont. I think the only school that wasn't represented was possibly Sanderson, but they were the year before. And it's just been with the summer workshop. We let anybody that's in the summer workshop come and join us. So it's become more of a Hilltown Drama Club, and we're moving down to Hollamont. We're going to continue the performances at the Heath School because we want to see that building stay lively and vibrant. But we're going to be doing some of the work down in Hollamont too. And I've been meeting with the principals down there, the outgoing one and incoming one. And then I think that's it. And if people have other questions, they can ask. And I'm going to invite some of the other people who aren't speaking to just chime in at the end. But why don't the rest of you come up now?
Just quick, age ranges.
Okay. Oh, thank you, because that was the last point I wanted to make. I know it's sort of collage or scattershot. We are vertically organized from 7 to 19. We have a littles and middles group that meets half days, 7 through 9. And then, of course, the drama club is all elementary school kids. But our summer workshop is 7 to 19, and the intensives are 12 to 19, although we made an exception for an 11-year-old, and it was the best exception we ever made. I want to say a little bit about the ages. The way that the drama club's evolved, there isn't a play left, I think. There isn't any aspect of children's theater that gets me excited anymore. What I get excited about is when Alex and Allie and Sam and some of the young adults you're hearing from today come up to help me with the drama club up in Heath. And this year we had 2 paid interns. Cassie is at HCC. Maeve, who's 22, who proves. I'm always saying to the kids who are like, sometimes in tears when their parents would choice out of the school or something, be like, will I be able to be in drama club? I'm like, I'm like, talk to Dave Sullivan. We are like the mafia. You can get in, but you can't get out. You know. So Maeve Gallagher, who was one of the only, she went to GCC, and when she was a freshman at GCC, she directed one of our plays. It was the first student-directed play up in our drama club, and she is now running the Silks program in our recovery intensives. She was with us this winter. She's 22. She proves like she left, but you know she came back. She was one of the other paid interns. Alex, who you're going to hear from, had this written into her care plan at Frontier, and got high school credit. Although the principal's waffling on that because you weren't a junior or senior, and so, but talked to the mayor Holyoke about that. So like why that? You're all, as far as I'm concerned, when you're on the set, you're all junior and senior. So she got credit for it. We're having young adults who haven't been to school in a year or participated in mainstream activities who are on our set and have it written into their IEP and are doing amazing work with us. So the opportunity for those older kids to mentor and engage with the community that way is important. And the therapist voice in me wants to just give a shout out and say also for a lot of the folks that are in our recovery intensives, elementary school wasn't necessarily their finest hour. A lot of times there were developmental pieces in their, experiences in their life that they missed. But sometimes I think when I see them working with our kids, I feel like not only are they giving their kids this amazing gift, but our young kids are giving gifting that back to them. So that's the age range. But in terms of the recovery specific, the kids that are going to talk today, that's 12 to 19, okay? So why don't we all, Sam, Alex, Allie, and Cassie, why don't you come up? You're going to read yours? No? You're going to have Alex read? Is that okay? You don't have to.
No, I don't want to read it.
Can I read it? Okay, you're just going to stand up here for Hope and Solidarity? Okay, great. Okay, why don't you, Cassie, you start.
My name is Cassie Cudley. I joined the Recovery Theater the first year it started, so 2 years ago now. This will be the third summer. I joined for mental health issues. Why are you going over there?
Solidarity.
I joined for mental health issues, and originally I had started as a participant the first year. The next year I came back and I took more leadership on, and then this coming year I'll be one of the student faculty leading it. And I just led one a couple weeks ago, a weekend recovery intensive to kind of keep the community that we create in the summer together throughout the year. And the journey from participant to student leader has been really extraordinary. It helped me in every facet of my life. I was a good student before, so that didn't really increase. But like I was more social, I gained more friends. It's really great to see other people going on that same journey from a bad place of either mental health issues or addiction issues forward to a leadership role and a stronger self.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Alexandra Schmidt. I'm 15 years old, and this past summer was my first summer doing both the recovery and the
Also
general
say where you
workshop.
guys live when you share it.
I live in South Deerfield.
Cassie.
I live in Russell, Mass, next to Westfield.
So I did the summer workshop at Hilltown Youth Theater in Charlemont, and then I also did the recovery theater during the summer and did the winter one and the spring one. And then after my winter recovery experience, I wrote reflections on it, so that's what I'm going to be reading. One second. Okay. Over the course of 3 days participating in the winter recovery intensive, I made more positive changes than I have all month. When you're in the recovery, you seem to become very mindful of your current situation, whatever it may be. Personally, I struggle with anxiety, depression, and insomnia. The anxiety has gained the strength to prevent me from attending high school along with occasional social events. Anxiety has altered my life drastically, brought me to my rock bottom, and taken power over the majority of my days these past 2 years. Attending the recovery intensive is like going on a mental vacation where nobody labels me by my anxiety disorder. Instead, I was surrounded by amazing, loving friends that had problems just like me. These experiences gave me the opportunity to refuel and face the reality of my anxiety-ridden day-to-day life. After each, I returned to the real world 10 times stronger and more confident in myself. Every activity that occurs has a different effect on me. Some are quite bizarre, yet beautiful and deep. You'll discover the feeling of another stranger's hand or the way they dance and howl like a wolf before you get to know their name or their struggle. Introductions always come after our first training or a leap from a 30-foot high board atop an aerial trapeze. Talk about first impressions. Friday night, we trained by lantern light, followed by writing our goodbye letters. It never ceases to amaze me how a dozen people, all with messy lives and loads of luggage, have the ability to create the most calming and therapeutic environment for one another. We had the whole building to ourselves, only lit by a total of 4 lanterns. I was so worry-free and lost the concept of time. My only focus was breathing to the music and matching my body movements to everybody else's. It sounds strange, but it's the best therapy I've had in my whole life in comparison to sitting on a couch with my muscles tense and ready to bolt out of the room at any given second. After the training, we gathered again in the lantern-lit space to put some words into writing. The purpose of my goodbye letter was to come to terms with the fact that my anxiety and I aren't ready to part ways yet. And that's okay. Of course, I was jealous hearing other strong people around me actually say goodbye to an issue of theirs. I wanted to be able to do the same, but it's nearly impossible to ditch the main attraction of this show called my life. So I made a compromise with myself. I agreed to let my anxiety float by my side as I work to get better, but it's not allowed to take control anymore. From now on, I get to decide my happiness and what I get to do on a day-to-day basis. And for once, I got to share that with everybody else in the room without trying to hide it or pretend like I'm perfect. I felt supported, and I knew that I didn't have to cover it with lies because this is a family and a safe space, and there's no judgment here. Nobody was going to ask me 100 questions I can't answer or laugh at me because I got teary-eyed. I felt good in my own skin, and that's something I haven't felt in a while.
That's an addition from Recovery Theater too. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Sam Picomoro. I live in Wendell, and I'm also going to be reading something that I wrote. Okay. Dysphoria was and still is a big piece on why I started coming to the Recovery Intensive group. Through having gender dysphoria, I became depressed and started using self-harm as a way to release frustration or self-hate in being in my own body. When I originally started coming to this group, I was just looking for a place to get better. Having bad experiences of community rejecting me in the past, I was a bit hesitant to open up to these people and this new group. But the theater piece of this helped me push myself out of my comfort zone. And now I feel that I have found an accepting and amazing community. I think if I had to choose something that makes this group different from the others is how they tie theater into the everyday practice. I feel like theater really helps me open up and play with different gender roles, and just the impact that these people have had on me has helped me in my everyday life.
Is there anything you want to reflect on?
Yeah, I can talk about the trapeze and stuff and when I came in last
Sure,
summer.
whatever you want to do.
Trapeze is the best subject. I'm Ellie Boswell. I did recovery theater last summer, and I did some work with the show. And I also actually flew on the trapeze last week, which is getting me really ready for this summer. I'm wicked excited. I think being up here in the hills, up at the trapeze, I get away from like Greenfield and like Turner's and all those towns where I think like drugs are really heavy right now. So it's nice to get away to like people who are like clean and sober up here in the hills, up at Recovery Theater and up at the workshop every summer, and I'm wicked excited to be part of it this summer. That's what I'll have to say.
Ellie also wrote some very meaningful reflections, which she's given me permission to share to give to the our guests, our visitors, which I'll get to you through Deb at some point. Okay. And so what I want to do really quickly is, I guess this is the segue to the community opening up, but is Laura or Arlie, is there anything you want to pitch in? Natalie, you had something to read from a parent's perspective, so why don't you come up and hand off Luna to Bella Sky.
Over here? Yeah. I'll stand next to you.
There we go. See, your mom likes to stand.
I have to find it. I had it.
Please pause for more technical difficulties.
Technical challenges. Not really
Fair enough.
difficult.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. I heard about the Recovery Theater from a friend at the perfect time. We were at a loss because my teen Sam was struggling with depression, anxiety, self-harming, and had just lost their community of friends because Sam was courageous enough to speak their truth and fight for what was right when another child was being discriminated against by an administrator in another arts program Sam was a part of. The support Sam needed was beyond what we could give them. Sam needed community. Sam needed to know they belonged somewhere. Sam needed that claiming, the healthy kind, all teenagers receive when they have their people in their lives. When Sam attended the Recovery Theater last summer, Sam came back with hope, with light in their eyes again, and I felt relieved as a parent and excited for my child. Maybe this place will be Sam's place. Sam has participated in 2 recovery workshops and performed in the summer spectacle. This winter, Sam supported as tech, the indoor traveling spectacle at the Heath School Drama Club, and got to be a mentor to the elementary age performers in that production. This program is a safe community where these kids get to be exactly where they are and who they are and loved unconditionally. This group has a spoken language that is theirs, one only this group understands. Sam is moving through this life experience with hope, strength, a sense of self and belonging. You're gonna make me cry. And new possibilities. A home away from home. As a parent, that is all I want for my child. To feel safe, to feel they belong, to be loved by themselves and by the people around them. It is an extra gift bonus that Jonathan and Alyssa love and wait, let me say it again. It is an extra gift bonus that Jonathan and Alyssa love, empower, create a safe container, and listen and see my child the way that I do. We all need support, old or young. We all need tools and skills. This program offers all of that, but what makes them different is that it comes from their hearts. They take the time to get to know your child the same way they would take the time to get to know a new friend. Everyone respects everyone here. It's real life, and that is who I want my children to be around. Sam is happy to be here. Sam loves all of these people, as I do. I hope you will consider being a part of what Jonathan and Alyssa and Cassie are all the other incredibly amazing student faculty are offering.
Now it reminds me that last summer was kind of a breakout summer for our gradual evolution from being staff-driven to student-led, and we hired 9 student directors and stage set designers, and they also staffed the Recovery Theater alums. They were alums that staffed that, and the Recovery Intensives. And I think I'm preaching to the choir in terms of the task force, but just providing people with a great experience, as amazing as what Arlie does with them up on the trapeze is. These folks need jobs, they need continuity, they don't just need a great summer, they need you to invest in them over time, and from middle and high school to college, and afterwards a little bit too. So I just wanted to give that a shout out. Arlie, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I had just a couple of things that I wanted to add. Some of them were brought up just in kind of the discussion that we had a few minutes ago. My name is Arlie Hart, and I have been working with Jonathan for several years now. I'm a cognitive psychologist by training and served on the faculty at the University of Kansas School of Medicine for a little while back in the 90s in the Office of Primary Care, looking at that's 20 years ago now. We were dealing with addiction issues then in a rural state and in a rural area, because most of Kansas, like most of Vermont and most of Massachusetts, a good portion of it is rural. And on the one hand, it's kind of sobering to see that the problems haven't changed. We haven't been able to fix this yet. And at the same time, the things that we do with the Youth Recovery theater and the youth recovery workshop, and the work that I do through the Circus of Hope, which is a social circus group based out of Austin, Texas. We bring people of all ages the opportunity to stretch their boundaries using circus skills and developing circus skills as a tool to allow them to learn that they can do things they wouldn't have thought they could have done. And by offering that opportunity, if you teach somebody to fly in the flying trapeze, and I offer that to everybody. I can teach anybody to take a swing on the flying trapeze. You learn that you can do something when you're afraid, and that you can make a choice and function even when you're afraid. And you can do that without having to have whatever it is that you're dealing with be the thing that lets you not be afraid. You can do it yourself. And so the work that we've been doing recognizes the idea that recovery doesn't just start and stop. Recovery is a process, and it's continuous. So we have to work as a community from the perspective that funding and support and education and the work we do has to be continuous. We can't just throw money at a program and say, okay, this is going to be it. And it may be fabulous for a year, and this is the thing that I saw happen in Kansas at the med school. Fabulous programming. It was grant driven, it was grant supported. It was a 5-year grant. The grant ran out, the program ended. And we did really great work for 5 years, and then it was done. And I don't think we have we can't do that anymore. It's not going to serve our purposes long term. And so the work that we do and the work that I do is trying to provide the tools and the place for people to build their own resiliency. And that's what I see working. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Arlie and I both
these guys are great.
Arlie and I both have a clinical background, and he got into trapeze flying like 16 years ago.
16 years ago. Yep.
And I probably got into this theater stuff. I went to he literally builds the trapezes. He doesn't just fly in them. He built that $30,000 machine you saw. He literally builds it from scratch. I've seen him do it. And I'm just saying, I went to UConn. They didn't teach me how to open a can of tuna fish there. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't leave me with an employable skill in the same way. So one quick shout out to Sandy, and that's to say that I meant to qualify when I started, and that's to say that therapists believe in every kind of coincidence except just a coincidence. So I had a cousin who overdosed from heroin, Bonnie. There's an expression in AA and 12-step that's an addict is a person with a spiritual calling who shows up at the wrong address. That describes Bonnie to a T. And I had a cousin, Doug, who was addicted to crack. He blew up an amazing law career from University of Pennsylvania that he was on track for, and just sent his one daughter to Ohio State, Deb. And the other is going into her senior year. And I share both of those stories too, Sandy, because it's really important that people know that these are stories of transformation and hope. You know, people often ask me, like, why do you work with addicts? Because it's not, you often end up feeling like a lousy therapist. And I'm like, well, there's a thing about addiction, and that's if, somebody comes in your office with depression, you can say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, a psychiatrist can ask you, how's the depression doing today? And you can say it's a 3, or it's a 7, or a 6. You can't really ask somebody on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your crack addiction today? But when they get better, it's like the best feeling in the world, right? It's quite remarkable. So I think that's it.
Well, and to throw one note back, I do build flying trapeze rigs. I build them and I install them and I teach people how to fly them all over the world. But I learned to do that because I grew up as a child of 2 alcoholic parents. And so I became really adept at fixing and building and taking care of. And which is completely common for children of alcoholics to step into that space. And so, I don't want my kids or anybody's kids to have to go through that in order to develop the skills I have. I'd rather just teach people. So, I can bring people in and teach them how to do this, and you don't have to go through all of the process. But if you have that process and that baggage with you, I offer, we all offer people a place to set the luggage down at the bottom of the ladder, climb up the ladder with me, and let's go get some work done. And that's what we do.
So we'll take our seats and try to let you open up. I have a, Deb, if you want to have a closing ritual, I have a 2-minute video of Cassie working with Sam on the trapeze, which I'll try to find, and we can look at, towards the end. And Laura, did you have anything do you want to chime in with something?
The only thing that I would add is that as over the last, a couple of decades, we've lost so much funding to the arts, and the arts are an incredibly valuable tool. Giving kids an environment, the permission, the support, the training to explore the arts, visual arts, performing arts, written arts, it gives them tools to be able to process their trauma. And that's the kind of thing, as Arlie says, addiction isn't just, okay, you're all better. It is a lifetime thing. It's learning those tools of how to handle the emotions in your life, how to handle that trauma. And the arts are invaluable, and we are struggling, in this country. It's being cut to the bone, and people don't see just how valuable it is. So the funding for this program is money very well spent.
Deb's predecessor said we're replacing pills with plays. Thank you.
So our second speaker of the evening is Eric. I invite Eric to come and share with us.
My name is Eric Fahey, and I'm a resident of Greenfield. I'm a member of the Recover Project in Greenfield, and you probably didn't expect to hear more advocating for theater, but I'm going to advocate for theater. I got sober in 1989 down in New York, lived on a small little town, Shelter Island, and through circumstances, I was 29 years old. Through circumstances, I ended up working at a theater, a regional theater, the Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor, and was run by Julie Andrews' daughter, Emma Walton. So I worked there. I ended up being a technical director for a year. I called up to volunteer originally, and so it's a long, long story, but what's amazing to me is the thing about theater is that it gives you the opportunity to shed, like a lot of the people have said, shed your skin that you wear, that we all wear, the faces that we're all created, right? As we try to get our identity, so we become who we think we should be. And the thing about theater is you can take that identity and put it on the shelf, and you can become somebody else, which is, I think, what other people were talking about. Try on somebody else's shoes. So, as a person in recovery, the thing that I found for myself was that the face that I had been put on, I had grown up in an alcoholic home, father left, I dropped out of school at 16, and the face that I had been given was not the true face of who I wanted to be. But I was given this face based on the circumstances of my life. And I was really blessed that I was able to stay sober. And part of that experience was in like my 3rd year of sobriety, getting involved in theater. I'm a carpenter by trade, and it's just like this gentleman said, it is the mafia. Once you're in, they don't let you out. And so, when I did a bunch of plays. One of them was a kid's play called Visions of Discovery by a gentleman named James something out of New York. And it was all a bunch of kids that did it. And it was about all these different people in history. And it was just an amazing experience to watch the kids learn their lines, talk, tell their stories. Just amazing. Then I ended up playing Inspector Lestrade in Sherlock's Last Case, and did this whole thing with an English accent, which my years of Monty Python really helped out. So I think, I ended up doing a theater at the Recover Project a couple of years ago called Mustard Seed Theater. And what happened of it was, the concept was just to let people get onto a stage and do whatever they wanted to do. So people brought ideas to the table. That was the year that that song Let It Go came out. And so a bunch of little kids came up And I'll just tell you the quick story. They never came to rehearsal, and they showed up. There was 5 of them. And it's like we're trying to put this show on, and I'm trying to direct everybody. And they never came to rehearsal, but they wanted to do their thing. And so, you know, and the mother is there, and it's like 4 little, the littlest one's like this big. And so they get up on the stage and they do their thing, and they all get off the stage and they walk past the microphones and off they go, wait. No, you can't just jump off the stage, you have to walk off in a line. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna work, right? They come back up, they do their thing, and guess what they did? They all walked off on a perfect line. And so, for me, the experience of that was to treat somebody with respect, ask them to respect themselves, and give them the opportunity to do that. And theater helps people do that. And once you have that experience of self-respect, getting respect from your audience, it builds a level of self-esteem that's hard to get out. And I think what you had said as you wrapped it up was it is all about the continuing support around building self-esteem and self-worth. And so as everybody was talking, you know, my mind was saying we need to really continue to work. I had no idea we were having a great theater presentation tonight.
2 great theater presentations.
Thank you. Well, you might have, you know, you will have some support from a carpenter. And what this gentleman had talked about in regard to building the trapeze, they totally identify with that. I can fix anything.
Exactly.
You know, you grow up in a situation where you need to figure out how to survive. You become a fixer. You become a person who can take their whatever skill set they can acquire and make it work. And unfortunately, that's what addicts bring to the table. Addicts bring, I'm going to drop the theater thing because I could talk an hour about it, but I'll just say one more thing about Mustard Seed Theater. We kept the audience for 2 hours straight with no intermission.
Nice.
And nobody that was involved in it understood how important that was but me. And because I knew that we had that audience for 2 hours sitting there without getting up, get a drink, to take an intermission, and you know, unfortunately, I haven't been able to duplicate that again. But the good news is we have 9 recover centers or funded centers throughout the state of Massachusetts where a theater type of a program like that could be put into place. And it didn't cost me a whole lot of money to do it. It just really, I got some flyers put out and it cost me my time, and it was well worth it. So I'll just end on that. I'm really interested in workforce development. I'm on the subcommittee of the Opioid Task Force for Workforce Development and Housing. Housing is pretty much my main focus. Several years ago, I was an escort for the jails, for the Franklin County Jail, and brought gentlemen from the jail to AA meetings. It was an amazing experience, but after 6 months, I realized that the missing key was where they were going to stay. At least 50%, if not 75% of them had no place to go once they got out of jail. So they've gone through the pre-release program, they're feeling strong, they're feeling confident, but they're really scared because they don't have a place to go after the fact. It's great that we have the rehab in town. Well, it's been well needed. The next step that we need to focus on is what the term now is called recovery residences. In Massachusetts last year, as of September, anybody running a sober home that was getting referrals from the jail system or from rehabs or any facility that was state funded needed to have a certified home. And the homes were certified by an organization that had been in existence but now was recognized, and it's called MASH. It's the Massachusetts Association of Sober Housing. There were 7 houses involved in MASH about almost 2 years ago when I first got exposed to them. There's now 150 houses that have been certified. That's the great news. And here's some of the bad news. The section of Massachusetts west of Worcester has only 15 homes that are certified. So from Worcester west, meaning Leominster, Gardner, all the way to Pittsfield, and then south down to what is it?
Springfield.
No, there's a town that's all the way to Sheffield. So that's the far corner, and north is like North Adams. There's only 15 sober homes certified. That doesn't mean that there's not more sober homes there that are operating, but the certified ones, which have a level of practice that is been established by the state of Mass. So I'm here just to kind of like talk about that and just to bring that to the board and say, that's something that is another next step. Jobs are really important. It's hard to manufacture, it's hard to create jobs. But the one thing that we can focus on is finding housing. The guys that come out of the jail, a lot of them do have jobs, but they don't have a safe, sober place to live. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of just throw out there today, and throw it out to the community to let the community know that that's another, that's an ongoing issue. I'll plug my new Facebook page that I just put out. I'm creating a company organization called SOS, which is Sober Occupancy Solutions. And I'm using that acronym so that people remember it, because we all know what a lot of people know what SOS means. So that when people are looking for homes, like right now, does anybody in here know about MASH? Has anybody heard of MASH? Okay, so very few people have heard of MASH. And so when I started getting involved in that, I realized that we need to get it known. So MASH is great, and some of us will remember MASH the series, but a lot of younger people won't. But SOS, I'm hoping, will become the thing. So if you run into somebody that needs a place for sober housing, you can remember SOS. Oh, there's this silly thing called SOS. Let's go on Google, and hopefully eventually it'll show up. So right now I have a Facebook page, and it has MASH on there, so you can go to that site, find sober housing. I have other sober houses that are certified on that site. So I'm trying to advocate for more availability for sober housing and the awareness that there is sober housing available. So I think that's all I have.
If I could just comment on the MASH piece too, was to also help with a lot of situations where there was sort of this illicit undercurrent within these houses where people thought they were help, but yet it wasn't safe and people were re-exposed. So it's been a good program and it's new. So I mean, it's only what, a year and a half, 2 years, and
it's a year. It'll be a year in September since the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, but thanks for mentioning it. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing that.
Could I just say one more time?
Sure.
Any actor wants to state. The Opioid Task Force has done amazing work. I've been around since it came into being when Marissa was running it, and I was at the college several times, which was that's a wonderful space, and I really appreciate the hospitality that we've experienced there at the college. But the Opioid Task Force, I really want to give a plug for the Opioid Task Force for bringing together the community, having something like this where we can get together and have an opportunity to talk and say whatever we want to say and have a venue about our thoughts on solutions towards the problem. And I just wanted to give a plug for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I didn't realize you had a theater interest too, so all these things were amazing. I know, I've heard this is great. Other questions?
Yeah, just reflect on one thing that Eric said. I just want to connect the dots for the committee, but also for my ensemble members, because I'm not making this up, and I have 4 witnesses because we just gave this presentation in Boston, and you guys know what it's like when you're doing it night after night. Sometimes you leave something in, something out. So Alyssa, my co-founder, asked me to say something about the goals, where we're going next in Boston. I didn't think I needed to say that here because people are so familiar with our program and the paid news coverage and stuff, but so Alyssa's goal is she has what she does, Eric, with the kids when we're in the recovery intensive, is she has them working on short compositions and narrative pieces, writing their own story basically and performing it with the group. And just another way of exchanging voices and healing through storytelling. And she wants to have a small group ensemble, like touring group, that goes into the schools and does some of this work with everybody in the schools and shares some of those stories. We've seen companies like that. Message Theater might be, the umbrella it comes under. I'm all about that. And then, and this is sort of how, Alyssa and I work, there's always somebody who's thinking like at the details and somebody bigger. I want to have a winter spectacle. Everybody knows that in the summer, the last 3 summers, the recovery, our magic bullet has been, our production value has like tripled the last couple of summers. And that's because we've gotten a running start in recovery intensive. We say the first thing I say to people is, we're here to work. I don't care where the rest of your ensemble members are. They're late to the gate. And then I also say to them, my goal here is so that when they come up to me, and this has actually happened, it's like, Jonathan, what's the least amount of crack I can smoke and the smallest dose of Prozac I can be on to get into that sucker? We have made the recovery intensive and recovery theater a popular thing. And we bring all that intimacy and we bring all of that sharing into the larger spectacle. You can leave that one off of the quote, like in paper. But we bring all of that into the spectacle, and an example would be somebody would say, when did you work on that? And this happened last summer. Rosalie turned around and said, in the recovery intensive, and they were like, that was awesome. And so my vision, where my next goal is, one is a mentorship program so that kids have people that follow them through this. That was actually the parents were saying, we want you to track our kids during the year. We want you to have more contact with them. And then my theater goal is that I want to have a recovery spectacle in the winter where the performers that are in the recovery theater and their narratives are showcased. We write an original piece. And I said I want it to be a piece of community theater because I want to connect with the recovery project. Stand up for a second, you're never tired of standing up. I said I want to connect with Linda Sarach, who has a granddaughter in our program. I want to connect with the people in the recovery project because I want our young adults mixing it up with those folks. Kids often ask me, which one of us is going to make it? Who's going to really break out and do something with this? And my answers are a very easy one. I was like, none of us. And they're like, how are you so sure? I'm like, because when you're in the presence of a Heath Ledger, poignant example, but when you're with somebody who's got those kinds of chops, you don't have to ask that question. What we're about is building community. We're teaching kids how to love through theater. It could be baseball, it could be something else. Tucker's done some of that with baseball, with sports. So I want them to mix it up with the recovery project people and have a piece of community theater. The only thing we'd have to do is Corey Chucks and Attorney General Sullivan. We don't care about DUIs and break-ins. We're not looking for it. There's something very specific that we are concerned about. But other than that, it's just to have them mix it up with people like Eric and some of the people that he's talking about. Because they need that. They need to have that. They need their sense of community expanded. So we'll be talking later, but I just wanted to say that those two ideas are not mutually exclusive.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you, Jonathan. So other questions for Eric and Jonathan from the panel based on what you've heard from Eric's experience. Clearly a strong theme with the arts, which is very important.
I really want to echo the housing. I think this is a challenge across the whole region, and even just sort of affordable housing of any kind in this region is really a growing challenge for us. And in particular, one thing we've heard is the need for a place large enough for a person to reconnect with their children if they're able to sort of be in recovery and start being able to see kids again. And so being in something where there's just one bedroom isn't enough. And so do we as a community try to allow that to, room for that family to kind of rebuild a little too. So I'm assuming you're on the workforce committee, but have you communicated or connected with the housing authority?
A little bit, yes. Yeah, I've connected with someone at Old Courts, and someone from the Greenfield Gardens is also on a committee. They're connected to Greenfield Gardens, and apparently they have a tenant association that they put together there, and so we've been talking about trying to create some sort of communications at Oak Courts. The one thing I would like to just throw out there, this is not a pretty comment, but the housing, the Oak Courts, other housing. I'm using Oak Courts, and I don't want to single out Oak Courts because it's not about that. We could put some focus in trying to clean up those spaces. And I don't want to keep my comments too sort of tight, but something that's come to my awareness is that I have a friend that I helped move into Oak Courts, so that's the only reason why I understand that dynamic right there. it's a place where things are cultivated. It's a cultivation spot for the activity that we're trying to stop. And so it's come to my awareness that that's why I started thinking about doing a community connection there and starting from the bottom, working out to try to weed out some of the challenges that are happening there. And I really want to, stress that I think if we could focus on eliminating the trafficking and the things that happen in those developments that we have, we might be able to slow down some of the activity throughout the rest of the city, and specifically Greenfield.
We'll have 2 more forums, as I mentioned earlier, and all this information that you shared with us this evening will be part of a report that we're going to be issuing to the community in the fall. So again, just want to thank you very much for contributing.